Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rekah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Kwame Wath with the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp, coming with another quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And this evening, I just wanted to touch on this Psalms first chapter, because as I was reading it, I just thought about the times that we're coming into, the importance of maintaining and continuing in this walk, right? Understanding that with the hour of temptation approaching, right, with World War III on the horizon, as Esau is preparing to come down as that flood, right? You need that connection to Yahweh Bashem and Yahweh Shai, man, right? And like it says here in the header of the chapter, the righteous and wicked contrasted, right? We're gonna see two completely different outcomes from the same scenarios, man, right? Because as the scriptures say, the righteous, suffer straight things yet hope for the wide, but the wicked will suffer the straight and yet not see the wide, man. Right? So they don't have that hope. Right? They're not gonna have that protection in these times to come. And as people are presented with the mark of the beast, as people are, put in these precarious situations as the martial law and things of that nature commence, right? As they lose access to resources, as these pestilences begin to, kick up, right? There's going to be those who are preserved and kept, right? And those who are left and given over to Esau's devices, man. Being the righteous and the wicked. So we'll start here in Psalms 1 and 1. It reads, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful," right? So those who don't what? You don't carry on, right, in the way of the wicked, man. Right? The way of this world. Right? You don't take the advice of the world, man. Because let the world tell you, as they present this device as a means of salvation, right, that's going to be your only way out. And that's going to be the way they present it, right? Salakia. They're already presenting, conditioning people's minds, rather, right, to be prepared to take it, right, and be more willing to take it. But that's that advice of the ungodly, the counsel of the ungodly, which is contrary to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man, right? The scriptures talk about a fool cannot give counsel, roughly paraphrasing, and that's what we're seeing. People are taking the counsel of fools, and it's leading them to terrible circumstances, man, horrific outcomes as a result. Verse 2, it reads, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord," right? So that blessed man, right, is delighted in the way of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man, right? It says, "And in his law doth he meditate day and night," right? So part of that is being occupied in prophecy. Let me get that, right? Because we'll get this one too. Revelation 19 and verse 10. That's Salakia. The internet's moving real slow right now. Revelation 19 and 10. "And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. Right? So in keeping the law, you keep that testimony. Right? In worshiping Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you continue to occupy yourself in the spirit of prophecy, man. Right? You walk in the way, right, that we've been ordained to walk, man. Right? Ephesians 4th chapter talks about, walking worthy of the vocation that we've been called into. You know. Let me see here. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 1. I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called. And you get that word vocation. It says a calling, an invitation to a feast of the divine invitation to embrace salvation, the salvation of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, right? So as we delight in the law, as we read back in that Psalms, right, we're meditating day and night in order to walk worthily of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, man, right? As we see the rest of the world walking contrary, man, right? They want to be accepted by the world. They want to be accepted, ultimately by these demons out here, man, right? But we want to be accepted by Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai because we understand that's where our protection lies. That's where our covering begins and ends. So going back to the Psalm. Psalm chapter 1 and verse 2. But his delight is in the law of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Right? So a tree that's planted by the river is receiving what? Continual nourishment. Right? And it's being allowed to be more and more rooted, man. Right? That bringeth forth his fruit in his season, his leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Right? So as those rivers of living waters, right, being this truth, are always going to have you in a state of nourishment, man. That's why it's, ever more important that we stay in the book, right? Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read, right? Because all this is where our answers lie, man. This is where our comfort is. This is where our healing is, right? This is where, our confidence is, right? It all starts with this book, man, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. And like it says, his leaf also shall not wither, right? So you're not going to grow weak, in the spirit as you stay, connected to the Lord, man. Right? You're going to be, rooted. You're going to be, stable in mind as we walk through, right, these treacherous times, right? Let's get this here. Isaiah 33. So like, I don't know why it's doing this. 33 and 6. And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure, right? So that foundation, right? That sure foundation, like it says in the NLT, right? Because as you get more and more rooted, right, you're less likely to be, thrown aside, man. Right? As that storm, approaches, those winds aren't going to be able to blow you away, right? And we're about to see a lot of people as we read on, right, get blown away and carried away into every wind of doctrine, like the scriptures speak on, man. Right? So let's go back. Psalm chapter 1 and verse 3. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Right. So our prosperity, right? You reading First Kings, I believe it's the first or second chapter, as King David is giving his instruction to Solomon. Actually, I'll just grab it. So like here. This is First Kings chapter 2, and starting in verse 1. Now the days of David drew nigh, that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man. And this is, as the scriptures speak on, girding yourself up, right? As a man, right? A man is a man of the Lord, man, right? That's where true manhood lies, right? And continuing in this walk, right? In being a man of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, first and foremost, right? It says, and keep the charge of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, to walk in his ways, right? So as we, right, you continue in that way, right? You meditate on the on this word, man, day and night, right? You meditate on the prophecies. You meditate on, the the kingdom, right? You meditate on, the coming judgments, right? We're continually thinking on these things, man. Meditating on what is pleasing to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, right? And how you can serve the Lord, right, day to day. It says to walk in his ways and to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, right? As we read that Revelation 19 and 10. As it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself, right? So whichever way you walk, if it's guided by Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, prosperity is ultimately the end result, right? Now, as we know, these times are going to be very perilous, but as we work our way through these persecutions, right, through these tough times, right, through this what is it, Acts 14, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, Acts 14 and 32. These tribulations, confirming the souls that were confirming, meaning to strengthen, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, right? Continue on that walk, in the right walk, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. So we're being prepared for this much tribulation, right? But on the other end is the kingdom, man, right? On the other end is prosperity, right? So as it says, as we go back to that Psalm 1 and 3, it's a lot. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper, right? We know our prosperity is at the end of this, man, right? That's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? That's salvation, right? The everlasting kingdom, righteousness, man, watching our enemies be destroyed, right? Receiving those crowns and those palms, and drinking that wine with Yahweh Shai, being, given that spiritual power throughout Jacob's trouble, right? Being able to maneuver throughout all these tribulations and trials, man, right? And still have that good footing, still have that faith, still have that sure foundation, that we don't get swayed into these other ways, man, right? because that way is going to lead to death. As we read here in verse 4, the ungodly are not so, right? So they lack that stability, right? They lack that faith, they lack that root, they lack that nourishment, right? But are like the chaff which the wind driveth away, right? So they get blown by the wind, blown away. And that's what we're about to start seeing, right? Is 2/3 get blown away, taken away in all these different manners of life, get taken away, by the judgments of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? Get taken away ultimately, by the MOTB, right? Because they're gonna look at that as their means of salvation. That they're gonna look at that as their way out, right? Because they don't delight in they don't delight in the law of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. They don't consider, right? They're not considering their ways, man. Right? Let me see if I can get that. There we go. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 44. And we'll start in we'll start in 18. This is Isaiah 44 and 18. They have not known or understood, for he has shut their eyes that they cannot see. Actually, what's like that? For he has shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. And none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge or understanding to say, I have burned part of it in the fire, yea, also have I baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it. I have made the residue thereof an abomination. Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? But the point being, right, our people don't consider, right? They don't consider their ways, right? There's another one. Let me see. But that was the point, right? 2/3 are not. They don't consider their ways, and that's why they're gonna fall into the lot of the ungodly, man. As we read in that Psalms, they're gonna be blown away, right? Literally, you know. So let's go back. Psalm chapter 1. Psalm 1 and 4. The ungodly are not so, but they are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous, right? So it says in the NLT, they will be condemned at the time of judgment, right? Sinners will have no place among the godly. They have, that's why it speaks on us being separate, man. Right? That's why you're reading, I think it's Revelation 22, or 22. Uh, let the filthy be filthy still, man. Right? Yep. This is Revelation 22 and 11, starting 10. And he saith unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still, man. Right? And that holy meaning separate, right? So the righteous and the holy are together, but the filthy and the unjust are cast away, man. Right? That separation is being made, right? Malachi 3:18, right? It says, then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and him that serveth him not. So that mark of that line in the sand, as brothers often make mention of, is being made, more and more evident, man. And it's growing wider and wider, so that it's a clear understanding of who's the servants of the Lord and who's not, right? And so, like the scripture say, then shall they be known who are my chosen. It's going to come to a point that it's going to be unmistakable, who the Lord is dealing with, man, because the wicked are going to have such a horrible judgment, right? That, like I said, they will not stand, right? They're not going to have a firm rooting in these times, man, right? Because as you read Jeremiah 30:7, right, the righteous are going to be saved out of Jacob's trouble, but we're going to be standing in righteousness, man, right? Lord willing, we endure until the end, right? We're going to be standing for Yahweh Bashem Yahushai during this this persecution, during these trials and tribulations, man, right? But the wicked are just going to be standing for for themselves, and they're going to serve that punishment as a result, man, right? So going back. Actually, let's get this real quick. Just touching back on that point of the wicked, right? It's a lot. Because it said, the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. This is Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, and starting in verse 10. Actually, let me see. Actually, we'll finish out Psalms, and then we'll read through Wisdom of Solomon 3, because these chapters parallel each other, right? So this is Wisdom of Solomon. It's like Psalm 1 and verse 5. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For Yahweh Bashem Yahushai knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish, right? So the way, right, both the path of the ungodly, right, the decisions, this way of life, these thought processes, these are going to perish, as well as that path leading them to destruction, man, right? So everything that is aligned with the ungodly, with the wicked, is going to be destroyed, right? And have no remembrance, right? But the Lord knoweth, right? He's well acquainted, he lights the path of the righteous, man, right? Now, when you jump to the Wisdom of Solomon 3rd chapter, it reads here, starting at the top, but the souls of the righteous are in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? So, like I said, he knoweth the way of the righteous, and there shall no torment touch them, right? Though we may find ourselves, or will find ourselves rather, right, in sticky situations, so to say, right? The Lord is always gonna, give us a way out, right? Even if, brothers have to be martyrs, right? That's just a way back to the spirit, man, right? That means you serve the Lord, right, to your fullest extent, your fullest capacity, and he's calling you back, right? It says, in the sight of the unwise, they seem to die, and their departure is taken from misery, right? So that's the you know, uh, precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints, man. Right? The servants of the Lord, uh, that lay their lives down for the testimony of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right, are gonna be looked upon fondly, right? For though they be punished, it's like in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality, and that's what our focus is on, man. Right? Going back to that, meditating day and night, right? Going back to that walk, right? The counsel of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right, leads to immortality. That wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? Where the counsel of the ungodly, right, leads to death. Verse 5. And having been a little chastened, right? So we're about to go through this chastening now. They shall be greatly rewarded. For Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai proved them and found them worthy for himself. So again, going back to that walk, right? Walking worthily of the vocation wherewith we have been called. As gold in the furnace hath been tried, or hath he tried them, and received them as a burnt offering, right? That sweet smell, that sweet savior, right? It says, and in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble, right? As the scriptures speak on, wisdom maketh a man's face to shine, right? Right. Part of being that standard being lifted up is the elect being those beacons for the other believers, man, right? And then again, the spiritual power, right? Because the Lord is going to show his strength through his men, right? By giving us that power. Lord willing, we be recipients of that, man. Verse 8, they shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord shall reign forever. They that put their trust in him shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in love shall abide with him. For grace and mercy is to his saints, and he hath care for his elect, right? So that whole first half, right, parallels to Psalms 1, 2, and 3. Psalms chapter 1, verse 1, 2, and 3, right? Speaking on how the Lord, is looking after his elect, how he's giving spiritual gifts to the elect, right? And how ultimately they're going to be kept, right, in these times to come, right? It says, verse 10, but the ungodly shall be punished according to their own imaginations, which have neglected the righteous and forsaken the Lord, right? So, as we read in that Psalm 1 and 6, right? The way of the ungodly shall perish, right? That's those wicked imaginations, man, right? The ways of a man, right, are the ways of death, roughly paraphrasing, man, right? For whoso despiseth wisdom and nurture, he is miserable, and their hope is vain. Their labor is unfruitful, and their works unprofitable, right? And what we read in Psalms 1 and 3, right? The righteous are gonna be like a tree planted by the rivers, man, right? Receiving those nourishments, that being fruitful, right, in the spirit, right? But the wicked are what? Dry, right? With no fruit, without nourishment, right? Miserable. Verse 12, their wives are foolish and their children wicked, and their offspring is cursed. Therefore, it's like, wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled, which hath not known the sinful bed. She shall have fruit in the visitation of souls, right? So that's going into, right, those who have not partaken in these philosophies, man, right? As the scriptures talk about being virgins, right? You haven't given yourself over to, right, these wayward doctrines, right? Once you come into this thing. Verse 14, and blessed is the eunuch which with his hands hath wrought no iniquity, nor imagined wicked things against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. For unto him shall be given the special gift of faith and an inheritance in the temple of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, more acceptable to his mind, right? So again, not being enticed by that woman, right? For glorious is the fruit of good labors, and not the root. It's like it. For glorious is the fruit of good labors, and the root of wisdom shall never fall away, right? So it's eternal, right? Eternal abundance, right, in wisdom, man, right? Going back to that immortality. I think it's Wisdom of Solomon 8th chapter, right? If I'm not mistaken, you can grab that real quick. Yep, Wisdom of Solomon 8 and 17. Now when I consider these things in myself and ponder them in my heart, how that to be allied unto wisdom is immortality, right? You know, the counsel of the wise, right? Starting with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, man, right? Leads to immortality. It reads, for verse 16, Wisdom of Solomon 3 and 16. As for the children of adulterers, they shall not come to their perfection, and the seed of an unrighteous bed shall be rooted out, right? So this going into this wicked generation, right? It's like it. For though they live long, yet shall they be nothing regarded, and their last age shall be without honor. And that's you can precept that with Psalms 1 and 4, right? How they will be, blown away as the chaff in the wind, man, right? With no remembrance, right? No honor. For if they die quickly, they have no hope, neither comfort in the day of trial. And this is where the times that we're coming into, just bringing it back, right? As we see, right, Jacob's trouble is on the front steps, man, right? It's at the front door knocking, and they have no hope, right? They're not going to have a light in these times of darkness, right? Neither comfort, right, in the day of these trials, man, because they're going to go through that same fire, right? But because they're the dross, right, they're going to be, burned away, right? But the elect are going to come out pure, right? Lord willing, we endure, right? We're going to come out that pure gold, man. But here's the final results of the ungodly, right? The wicked. For horrible is the end of the unrighteous generation, right? So going back to that psalm, and we'll close out. Psalm 1 and 6. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish, man. Right? So we're seeing that, the contrast, like it says here in the header of this chapter, right? We're seeing that separation, right? We're seeing, and we understand, right, in these times to come, it's going to be, made even greater, right? Who the servants of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai are, and who they aren't, right? And those who aren't, right? We're going to see terrible judgments, come to them, man. But the righteous are going to be in a state of prosperity, right? The righteous are going to be in a state of stability. The righteous are going to be in a state of, as it reads in Isaiah 63, I believe. 64. So like Isaiah 65 and 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. Right? So this is what's, the difference, man. Right? You see the end result of the righteous, right? And the end results of the wicked, man. The end results of the ungodly. right? And it's speaking to you Israelites, man. You Negro, Latino, Native Americans, Hispanics, right? West Indians, and you Israelite foreigners, man, right? Who this word, you know, jives with your spirit, you know. This is the what we're about to start seeing take place in the earth, but you know, mainly in Babylon the Great, America, right? Is that difference being, you know, or that division, you know, growing greater and greater, right? That separation between the holy, right, and the profane, right? Being the, you know, the righteous, the 1/3 and the 2/3, man, right? But you know, just something quick through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, Lord, one that was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. I want to close by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom, and Kwame Yasharala and the Bible Ball. Shalom.